Morning, guys. Up bright and early again on a Sunday morning, heading to Oscar Mora's place with Chris Sykes in their workshop that they are doing. And we had a great day yesterday. It was an awesome day. You know, it's really cool, and if people would start to realize this and look at the perspective of how much they can learn by observing other dogs and other owners' relationships with their dogs. You know, that's what I was watching yesterday, along, of course, being worried about Bruno and building my dog. But when you're around that type of people, everybody is a multitude of different personalities, different knowledge bases, different. We had people in from, I don't know what I'm saying we, but Oscar had people in from Mexico. We had a dog walker that's really familiar with, walking large amounts of dogs, and that's a whole nother art. Being around Caesar, I used to see him dealing with a pack. You can learn all kinds of things from observing. Like Caesar was really made a comment in that one post that he mentioned me after 30 years. He mentioned that he didn't understand why I hung around. Why was I there for 2 years and hanging around him like I did? Well, the reality and truth was because I was watching and observing the pack and seeing that interplay with what his philosophies were, that he was fulfilling the dog's psychological needs. Remember where Caesar came from. He started by being a dog walker, right? And so that was the whole part of it. Dealing with a pack like that is an art in itself. I don't do it because of the work involved and what you've got to do to get yourself in the right frame of mind to deal with all those dogs intermixing with each other. It just was something that I didn't get into for my own personal, but that didn't mean I couldn't learn all kinds of things from him, right? So I sat there and observed and really watched the pack and him interchanging with the pack, and a lot of his philosophies were kind of cool to me because I could sit there and look at it and see, okay, how is he applying his philosophies in regards to this pack? And what they was it was all about fulfilling the dog's psychological needs. And that meant that he was addressing food, travel. Back then, even sex was talked about. You don't see any of this on his TV show, but I could tell you some stories, that he was all about fulfilling that pack's psychological needs and running them in that regards with his mental attitude. If you ever notice, Caesar doesn't do really a heel, sit down, stay. He's more of a homeopathic type of approach where he's talking about energy and fulfilling the dog's psychological needs through their needs in regards to the pack. Travel was one of those things, and food and sex was also talked about, and all the things that fulfill that dog to make them a balanced animal, right? And then he uses that pack to this day in regards to balancing dogs that come in that are out of balance and that need to have work done, and that's what he's using, the pack to balance that pack. So, all right, off that subject, back to Oscar's group. So the diversity was really what I got into. A lot of these guys are kids. There was a lot of auditing. There was a good half the room was people just sitting on the bench watching and observing and taking advantage of learning and growing themselves by being an auditor, by sitting the bench, right? And I thought that was very admirable. And that was the dog walker and several of them that were trainers, that pet quality trainers, that kind of thing. One guy was a dog walker, like I said, and it's just a really interesting group of people because, again, some of the dogs that were brought in had different variances of abilities and genetic stamp, and then the output in regards to the owner, the handler, with the dog, seeing maybe a dog had a little bit of conflict with the owner, that kind of thing. Just the different things in regards to humans and how we affect our dogs, right? And vice versa, how the dogs affect us. That interchange and that whole dichotomy of human and dog relationships. It was really cool for me to step, and that's my nature. I just go right away to observing. It's why I was with Caesar for so long, and what I've done my whole life is live in the back of the kennels and really get into it. I remember as a kid in Oakland learning and understanding that dogs have a communication with the sound of their voice. I could tell you that when somebody came through the front door of the the business, the bell would ring and the dogs would all start barking. There was a certain tone. And at night there was a certain tone with the traffic. There was certain things, and I almost could hone in on it right away what those dogs were barking about, right? Because you get used to hearing the tonation of the dogs barking and their cadence and everything else. A lot of it just happens in my instincts nowadays. I can't really give you specifics in that regard, but I really got understood that dogs have a communication. Think about it. The wolves, they're communicating with another pack across the way, and there is a dog communication that happens. And if you become aware of it, it's just kind of a cool thing to watch and observe. And I'll do that today too, be watching and observing and learning as much as I can through that observation. It's not just specific heel, sit down, stay. How many times I got to say it? When you're dealing with dogs, there's a lot more. It goes a lot deeper than just heel, sit down, stay, right? So, all right, so we're going to have another good day. I'll let you know what's going on. Bruno did a great job. There was some things that we had to work our way through that were interesting in that regards too, but I have to remind myself the dog's only a 9-10-month-old dog, right? He came over at 6 months of age, got handed to me, and I started working him. I've had him for 2 30-day periods of time, so he's been with me 60 days, right? And then the owner hasn't really been with him for any length of time, which is going to be changing when I take him back after this event. This next week he goes back home to do some more bonding with the owner and be there with him for a while, and then I'll take him back in when I feel he's ready for that next stint, right? Remember, I do my training in a 30-day periods of time. You're paying me for my time. So I usually just put my head down and start working towards what I got to do with the animal to make him the best that we possibly can. Build that dog. That's what it's all about. Build the house, as I like to look at it, right? And Chris and Sykes did a great job. I was really enjoyed the relationship they've got, bouncing off each other and accenting each other. It was good work, really well done. Chris took the bites off of Bruno for the most part, but Oscar was right there, and they were working as a team, and that was good shit. So, excuse my language. All right, guys. Mark Fresh, Protect Dog Training, yakking at the screen, heading out. Dark 30, going to Oscar's place, and we'll have another great day enjoying the company and the people that are in the room and learning as much as I can through observation. That's a lot of what you're doing, Stand back and listen to what they're saying about the other dog and how they're critiquing it, how they analyze it. And just all this stuff that you can learn so much just by watching, right? All right, I'll talk to you later. Mark Fresh, Protect Dog Training, signing off. Heading to Oscar Mora, Elevated Canine, and Chris Sykes Workshop. Talk to you later.